right, I'm ready.
It's o'clock, so we'll get it started. Good evening, everyone. My name is John Urino. I'm the zoning examiner for the city of Tucson. We have 6 cases on for hearing this evening. The first 3 cases are zoning examiner special exception cases. We'll take them up first, and once those are concluded, the public hearing on those 3 zoning examiner special exception cases are concluded, I will make some additional remarks before we move on to the rezoning cases. So with that out of the way, I'd like to say that welcome everyone and thank you for participating in this hearing. Peter McLaughlin and John Beal of the Planning and Development Services Department will be assisting this evening, and they will be presenting staff reports on each of the cases. So I'm going to call the first 2 of the special exception cases together, and Mr. McLaughlin will be presenting a staff report on those 2 cases. Those cases are case SE 2113, City of Tucson Water, 11,713 South Old Nogales Highway, and case SE 2114, City of Tucson Water. The address is 11,891 South Old Nogales Highway. Mr. McLaughlin, would you like to present the cases?
Yes, these are both requests by Lexi Willett of the Planning Center on behalf of the property owner, City of Tucson, to equip existing wells with equipment and technology to function properly, as these are special exception land uses both in the RH zone. And the first one is located at 11713 South Old Nogales Highway, approximately 0.6 miles east of Old Nogales Highway between Old Vale Connection Road and Pima Mine Road. And both of these, well, let me address that one first. It's in compliance with the performance criteria for utility distribution use and is consistent with plan policies. Staff recommends approval of the requested special exception subject to compliance with the preliminary conditions. And the second case, very similar to that one, is also equipment upgrades to a well site, but that one, case number 2, item number 2, is located at 11891 South Old Nogales Highway, also in the RH zone, and it's almost the exact same type of facility with communication technology and equipment and other other technology to allow distribution of water and for the well to proper functionally adequately. And this one is also in compliance with the plan policies and performance criteria of a water distribution facility use, and staff recommends approval on this case as well. And for both cases, we've had 0 approvals and 0 protests. And that concludes the staff report on both.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. Would the applicant like to be heard on these 2 cases?
Sure, Mr. Urino. This is Lexi Well with the Planning Center on behalf of Tucson Water. As Mr. McLaughlin mentioned, both of these cases are new well sites being drilled in the Santa Cruz well field. You're familiar with these cases, so I won't bore you with the details there. But if you have any questions, we're here and available to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Willett. Would anyone in the audience like to be heard on these 2 special exception cases? Hearing no one, I'm closing the public hearing on case SE 2113 and case SE 2114. Our third special exception case this evening is case SE 2115, City of Tucson Water, Waverly Street. Mr. John Beal, would you like to present the staff report?
Yes, this is a request by Lexi Willett of the Planning Center on behalf of the property owner, City of Tucson, for site improvements at an already functioning well site as a special exception land use in the R1 zone. The special exception site is for an existing well located at 2801 East Waverly Street between Treat Avenue and Stewart Avenue. The existing well needs some technology upgrades to the existing supervisory control and data acquisition system. This system is a computerized remote monitoring system that helps move water efficiently throughout the community, helps to maintain water pressure, monitors water quality, and collects water system data, and allows the water system to be operated remotely from a central control location. Because of the property's current zoning, the site upgrades cannot be installed without the approval of a special exception distribution system allowed in the R1 zone, and it's subject to the Unified Development Code and requires approval through a zoning examiner special exception. The staff finds the proposal to be in compliance with all applicable UDC use-specific standards. The proposal is in compliance with the performance criteria for utility distribution use. The request is consistent with policy direction in Plan Tucson, the University Area Plan, and the Blumen Vista Neighborhood Plan, which support development design to be compatible with and sensitive to surrounding land uses. A plan amendment is not required and subject to compliance with the attached preliminary conditions. Approval of the requested special exception is appropriate. As of today's date, there are 2 approvals and 1 protest. And that concludes staff's report.
Thank you, Mr. Beal. Ms. Willett, would you like to be heard?
Absolutely. Just very briefly, Mr. Urino, this is Lexi Well at the Planning Center to East Congress in downtown Tucson. Again, this is another request by Tucson Water to upgrade some technology at an existing well site located off of Waverly Street there. This site has vegetation, it's got a nice mural on the wall, and is screened appropriately. So unless you have any questions, I have nothing further to add.
Thank you, Ms. Willett. Would anyone else in the audience like to be heard on this third special exception case?
Hi there.
Hearing no one.
Hi there.
I'm sorry, go right ahead and start with your
interrupt.
name and address, please.
My name is Karine Von May, spelled K-A-R-I-N, last name Von May, V as in Victor. I am a resident at 2701 East Linden Street, within 400 feet. And I just wanted to add that I am a natural science illustrator and have recently published a book on, been published in a book on native pollinators. And I would like to offer my services to paint a mural over the existing mural that is in disrepair and is very faded. And that's all. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Ms. Von May. Ms. Willett, would you reach out to Ms. Von May outside of this hearing and discuss that possibility?
Yes, no problem whatsoever. If Ms. Von May can, in the chat, include her email address, I'd be happy to reach out to her, no problem.
Okay, thank you. And thank you again for your participation and your offer, Ms. Von May. Would anyone else in the audience like to be heard on this special exception case? Hearing no one, I will close the hearing on case SE 2115. So what we're going to take up now are three remaining cases, and as I indicated before, they're a little different than the special exception cases. In the special exception cases, the zoning examiner makes the decision within 5 days on the application for the special exception use. In rezoning cases, what I do is within 5 days, I make a recommendation within 5 days, I prepare a preliminary report. 5 days later, I prepare a final report. And my reports are a recommendation to the mayor and council for their consideration when they take up the matter at a mayor and council meeting in the future. So the purpose of tonight's hearing is to invite participation from anyone in the community who wants to be heard on the three rezoning cases we have. The procedure will be somewhat like what we just went through. I will begin by asking a staff member to prepare, or to present rather, the staff report. I will then ask the applicant if he or she would like to be heard on the rezoning application. And then I will ask if anyone in the audience wishes to participate. Since I can have no communication with anyone involved in these cases outside of these hearings, your opportunity to communicate to me your position or your feelings or what you think about the rezoning cases. So I invite you to participate if you would like to do so. After I have heard from everyone in the audience who'd like to be heard on each of the cases, I will then ask the applicant or the applicant's representative if they want to make any closing remarks. After that, I will likely close the public hearings, and as I said before, I prepare first a preliminary report within 5 days, and that preliminary report is available for anyone who wants a copy of it from the Planning and Development Services Department. 5 days later, I prepare a final report, and that report on to Mayor and Council, and it's also available both on the Planning and Development Services website, but also you could probably get a copy from Planning and Development Services directly if you want to call them about that. So with those preliminaries out of the way, I will open the public hearing on our first rezoning case tonight, which is case C9-2116, Pantana River Community, Valencia Road, SR and I2 to R2. Mr. McLaughlin, would you present the staff report?
Yes, this is a request by Lexi Willett of the Planning Center on behalf of the property owner, Cal Portland Company, to rezone approximately 246 acres located adjacent to and on both sides of the Pantana Wash. The Pantana Wash basically bisects the property through its middle on a north to south to north course. And it's located at the edge of Tucson's jurisdictional limits, approximately 2 miles east of Houghton Road at 11800 East Valencia Road. And the request is from SR and I2 to R2 zoning. And this is to allow a two-phased 1,187 unit single family and multifamily residential subdivision at a density of approximately 4.82 units per acre. The western I2 portion of the rezoning site, which is phase 1 and located west of the Pantana Wash, has been previously disturbed because it was formerly operated as the Cal Portland Cement Quarry, which is now no longer in operation. And the eastern portion, east of the wash, is zoned SR and is undeveloped land and largely undisturbed. The phase 2 portion of the site is proposed with slightly larger lots and a relatively lower residential density. The proposal is for a mix of single-story and two-story residences with a maximum height of 25 feet. And that's in compliance with the R2 zone as a maximum height. Both the City of Tucson and Pima County staff have expressed concerns with proceeding with the phase 2 portion of the project based on the ingress and egress yet to be fully defined. The applicant has submitted a PDP with a note similar to the preliminary zoning condition number 10, which states that prior to any development package submittal for phase 2, the developer will need to coordinate with Pima County Transportation and the City of Tucson Department of Transportation and Mobility to determine phase 2 access, circulation, and roadway connections and the alignments of these roads, including timing of future roadway improvements. Any direct access to roads within existing neighborhoods to the east and north from phase 2 rezoning site, staff recommends there should be no more than 15 residential lots in that phase 2 portion until that's determined. The PDP proposes single-family and multifamily homes west of Pantana Wash in phase 1 and single-family homes exclusively in larger lots to the east of the Pantana Wash in phase 2 development. The lower density in the eastern phase 2 portion is intended to provide a transition of densities between the planned community and the existing very low density residential neighborhoods within Rocking K Ranch Estates to the east within Pima County in RH, CR1, and SR zones. Those are county zones to the east. The Pantana Wash, being a major drainage way, is designated as a river park on the Pima County Trails System Master Plan, and a 100-foot setback measured from the top of wash bank should be designated for river park corridors on both sides of the Pantana Wash to meet the design considerations of the Pima County Trails Master Plan. And this 100-foot wide area on both sides of the wash is shown on the preliminary development plan in compliance with the Trails Master Plan. Until future access roads through Pima County are determined, and to help preserve habitat and open space, City Planning and Development Services staff recommends in phase 2 that no more than 50 lots be permitted within the existing SR zoning east of the Pantana Wash. This would provide transition and buffer between the project and the lower density residential uses to the east in Pima County and the Rocking K Ranch development, and the proposed higher density residential uses proposed in phase 1 of the project west of the wash. This until such time as future access and circulation can be determined. Because traffic impacts need to be further evaluated, staff recommends that prior to any development package submittal for phase 2, the developer shall coordinate with Pima County Transportation and the City of Tucson Department of Transportation and Mobility to determine phase 2 access, circulation, and roadway connections to either north-south or east-west roadway alignments. The developer should provide a traffic study for this phase 2 portion and other related studies as may be needed, and roadway alignment for review and approval by both Pima County Transportation and Department of Transportation and Mobility. Any such collaboration with the city and county would require the timing of future roadway improvements. And again, staff recommends that direct access to roads within existing neighborhoods to the east and north of phase 2 rezoning be for no more than 15 residential units. Phase 1 of the rezoning proposal is in general compliance with the Houghton Area Master Plan, the HAMP in other words, and Plan Tucson, as well as the Pima County Comprehensive Plan and Rincon Southeast Subregional Plan. The phase 1 project redevelops an abandoned sand and gravel extraction site currently zoned I2 heavy industrial, thereby eliminating opportunity for intense heavy industrial uses to continue or relocate there in that western portion, and potentially provides for the preservation of Pantana Wash as an open space, major drainage way, and wildlife corridor, and providing recreational opportunities with a linear park along the west side of the wash. The addition of new roads, sidewalks, bike lanes, and shared use paths improve connectivity. And staff recognizes that prior to any development package or ordinance for phase 2 or east of the Pantana Wash, coordination is needed with both Pima County and City of Tucson to determine phase 2 access, circulation, and future roadway connections. Subject to compliance with the preliminary conditions and subject to submittal and review of a PDP showing compliance with these conditions, approval of the requested R2 zoning is appropriate. And we've received 1 approval to date and 145 protests to date. And that concludes the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. Ms. Wellett, would you like to be heard?
Yes, Mr. Urino, thank you so much. My name is Lexi Well, and I'm with the Planning Center located at 2 East Congress in downtown Tucson. I'm also joined this evening by Linda Morales with the Planning Center, as well as Bill Hallinan, the representative of the property owner there, and the developer here on the case. So I have a brief presentation to give before we turn it over to the public for testimony. So if you can all indicate when you can see my screen, that would be much appreciated.
Not yet.
We're having little technical issues here.
It might kick us out here 1 second.
Oh, no.
Take your time. We're patient.
Can you all see that now?
No, it's not coming up.
Still not?
Well, maybe. Yes. It
Oh,
just came-
hallelujah.
Okay.
Scaring us.
Thank you all for patience here. I don't know what it is with our technology here, but it's something with this case, I guess. But as all of the neighbors here, thank you for being patient with us here. But as Peter alluded to, this case is for the Pantana River Plan community. To further orient everybody where we are, the site we are looking at rezoning is currently located about 2 miles east of Houghton Road off of Valencia, just south of the new Valencia Road expansion. And this site is about 246 acres in size, with the Pantana Wash bisecting it. To look more closely at the site and its existing condition, again, this site is zoned I2, and I'll show those zoning designations on the next slide, but this site is zoned I2 and SR and was formerly owned by Cal Portland Cement Company and was used as a sand and gravel extraction site. So most of the disturbance has occurred on the west side, which is this top area shown in red. North is looking off to your right here. But the northern portion of this site has had some heavy disturbances on it associated with the sand and gravel extraction. And then the east side of the wash, which is on the bottom side of your screen, has disturbances associated with informal trail systems that have occurred across the site just over the course of time. The next slide that I wanted to jump into was not this one, but it jumped us one too many, was the zoning context, just to orient us all with what the request is. So again, this site is zoned SR and I2. Again, I apologize here with the zoning boundaries. It's a little off with the aerial, but needless to say, the half of the site is zoned I2 and the other half is SR. And again, our request is to rezone the area shown in purple or highlighted in purple for, to R2 to allow for single family, multifamily residential developed in a phased community here. Prior to when we first embarked on this journey of looking at what this site would allow for in terms of density, the first plan we always go to and what governs this area in the city is known as the HAMP, as Mr. McLaughlin alluded to. And the HAMP designates this property as neighborhood low density residential, which allows for a minimum density of 4 rack to 8 rack, which means there is a minimum requirement of 4 residents per acre with a maximum requirement of 8 residents per acre on the west side of the property there. So to just orient everybody, this area shown in green is designated as a 100-year floodplain or river park, and so that's where the Pantano is. And so everything on the west side of the Pantano per the HAMP is suggested to develop at a minimum rack of 4 residents per acre with a maximum of 8. And then the very low density, which is the eastern side, arguably our phase 2 area, which suggests that we shall develop with a density of less than 4 rack. And so as we embarked on this rezoning process and we met with the neighbors 3 times prior to submitting, once was a larger neighborhood meeting, and then 2 other times were with some representatives from Rocking K. We sharpened our pencils based on what we heard. And before I get into what our final land use plan is, I wanted to just run you through what it is we heard from the neighbors initially. But before doing that, I want to orient you on the whole planning context of this area, because not only is the HAMP governing the larger planning context of this area, but we've got a lot of other plans that have been put in place and land that has been entitled recently. And so the HAMP suggests on a larger scale, long range plan, what is suggested, but more recently, just west of this site, and Mr. Urino, I'm sure you're familiar with the case, was the Atterbury Trails PCD, the Planned Community Development, which is just west of this site, which planned a lot of the state land which is state land west of the site for densities similar to what we were proposing in line with the HAMP. So while we seem we're a little bit far out there, this site is actually the next project in line for planned development in the city. And then beyond the city, our property borders Pima County. So it's important to start to look at what is Pima County's plans. And so immediately adjacent to us, we have Rocking K Ranch Estates, which is a larger lot community. But just beyond them, Pima County's plans are to increase density with the Rocking K South planned community, which has very similarly intensity development that we're proposing, and in fact more intensity on the other side of Pima County. So again, this is just telling the story of what's happening in this area, that it's all in line and aiding towards this transition, moving towards the Pantano and some of these existing developments that exist in Pima County, and really aiding towards that transition of the city interfacing with the county. So to get to what we heard through our neighborhood meetings and public outreach process was a large concern predominantly associated with traffic, and that was traffic through the Rocking K Estates and then traffic at the intersection of Valencia Road and Valencia Loop. And so I wanted to to touch heavily on the phase 2 traffic through Rock and K Estates, because I feel that's what most people are here for this evening, is a fear that we're going to propose development through their subdivision. And we heard the concern very loud and clear. And I think through working with staff and the neighbors, condition number 10 gets to that, which suggests that any access for phase 2 shall be provided via a new road to the north in excess of what is currently allowed on the existing per the existing entitlements. So aside from traffic, and I'll get to how, when I get to the next slide, again, reiterate these points, but I wanted to upfront what we heard with the neighbors, because that's how this process has gone. It has been 100% hearing from the neighbors and all about dialogue prior to submittal. So in addition to traffic, we heard concerns with just proximity of our development to the existing commercial horse stables that exist on the eastern side of the property. So I'll address how we're accommodating those concerns. And then the other concern was removal of the removing access to the informal trails that get to the Pantana Wash that exist on the site that many folks in the area have historically used over time. To get where we're at today and what the proposal is before you, again, with many iterations with the neighbors and city staff, is we're looking to develop the 246-acre site into a multi-phase development consisting of a maximum of 1,187 units. This development, on the west side, just starting from the west to the east, we're looking at proposing on the northern half of our site some multifamily residential units and then single family residential units. And each of those developments will have access to a 100-foot linear park that will be put in place in the future. The Pantana Wash, again, moving east to west, we are proposing to keep the Pantana Wash as natural open space with bank protection on both sides of the wash. Again, providing, I think, significant benefit for the flooding concerns that have been mentioned to us by the neighbors out there, just by way of the open drainage courses of the site. And then moving to the eastern portion of the site, we're looking at a secondary phase, which is, we're very early on in the planning process. That's why access is a little bit unknown. However, we have determined that bank protection will be provided. 100-foot linear park will be provided on that side, and the overall density will be less than what the maximum requirement of the HAMP suggests. So on that eastern side, we're looking at proposing 134 lots, which is about 80 lots less than what we initially proposed to the neighbors in our neighborhood meeting. Again, trying to get down to some of these, make it more compatible. And most importantly, I think on this eastern side is the access, and the note that I have highlighted very clearly here in black is that access to phase 2 will be provided via a new road that extends northerly to Valencia Road. The road will be determined in coordination with City of Tucson, Department of Transportation and Mobility, and with Pima County Department of Transportation, but before development in excess of 15 homes, which is allowed under the current entitlement. So a summary of what it is we're proposing entirely is we are proposing to rezone the 246-acre property from I2 and SR to R2 for a multi-phase residential development with a maximum of 1,187 units at full build out. The west side of the property, which is phase 1, is planned to develop with multifamily housing, which will consist of traditional apartments or detached casitas and single family residence with a linear park along the west side of the Pantana Wash. The east side of the property is planned to develop with single family residences at a density less than 4 units per acre with a linear park along the east side of the wash. The Pantana Wash will be preserved as natural open space with bank protection provided along both banks. I think one of the biggest merits of this case is it removes the ability for heavy industrial uses to locate on the property, which is more in line with the existing and planned character of the area, as suggested by both Pima County's long-range plan, Pima Prospers, as well as the City of Tucson's general plan and the Houghton Area Master Plan. And then what this rezoning also allows for is it limits the development of the building heights on the west side, whereas currently we're allowed to go 140 feet and have very intense uses given that it's zoned R2. What this does is it limits that ability to develop and further limits the building height to 25 feet. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Mr. Urino, for any questions you have, and then open to hearing all of the neighbors' feedback. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I do have a couple of questions before I open it up to others. So if I understand it correctly, you're not proposing any access across the wash from what you're calling phase 1 to what you're calling phase 2. Is that still correct?
Yes, Mr. Urino, that is correct.
All right. And the second thing is, I noted in the comments from the City Department of Transportation Mobility, I'll paraphrase, but I think the sense I got from their comments was that it's premature to take on the rezoning of the land east of the wash, what is being described as phase 2, until such time as the owner or developer has identified the access, because as I read their comments, the idea candidly makes some common sense, which is how can you analyze traffic impacts until you know where the traffic will be going? Have I misread their comments, or if not, what would you say to that?
This is Bill Hallinan with Cottonwood Properties. I think the answer to that is we've committed to not develop that with any intense uses until such time as there is a road down through the vacant property that connects it directly to Valencia and avoids any increase in traffic to the Rocking K Estates. It's what we need a land plan approval to go get the road in the right of way. It's a little bit of we need the approval to get that, and if it does, if that connection is not made, certainly the conditions for this very clearly prohibit anything more than what's allowed under the existing zoning.
Okay, if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Hallahan, is it Hallahan? I'm sorry.
Close enough. It's been butchered many times. Hallahan.
Okay, well, with a name like Urino, I sympathize with you. So I just need your address, just for the record. Folks who speak give their name and business address is fine.
I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. 3567 East Sunrise Drive, Suite 2119.
Well, thank you very much for that. Okay, I hear what you're saying. I may have some additional questions of the applicant after we have heard from others in the audience. I want to tell everyone in the audience that we had 2 requests to speak. That doesn't mean the rest of you can't speak at all, but out of courtesy to those who phoned in or emailed in, I'll take them first. First, we have Mr. Richard Cowan. Mr. Cowan, would you like to be heard?
Yes,
And if you would,
thank
please start with your address.
My address is 7201 South Camino Merlot. And I want to address 2 issues that I think that the developer is beginning to recognize, but I think are still important. That's access and density. I'm going to suggest in terms of density that the current zoning SR not be changed. Be keeping it, either keep it as the same as it is now, or turn the whole area east of Pantana Wash into open space, something like that. I think it's really crucial that you consider both the eastern area as a buffer to Rocking K Ranch Estates, but even more importantly than that is as a buffer and as an encouragement to the open land of the Pantana Wash. That's how my feeling about density. So I'm strongly suggesting that the zoning on the east not be changed at all. In terms of access, we've had our property for 13 years now, and we've noticed every year that Old Spanish Trail gets more and more intense traffic. I really hope the developer takes seriously that the idea of access through Rocking K Ranch would be a street called Los Reales to another street called Garanon or another street called Potranco. These are little tiny streets and they're curvy and they just cannot support increased traffic. As it is now, getting from Pantano to Old Spanish Trail is really dangerous. And I'll conclude by saying, not only is that true that it's dangerous and I'm hoping the developer is serious about no access to the Rocking K Ranch estates, but also I want to point out that Old Spanish Trail is increasingly becoming dangerous just by itself because of the developments further to the south. This density and access has to be considered very, very seriously, particularly in phase one for sure, but particularly in phase two, or else we're going to have continual traffic jams in what is supposed to be a semi-rural environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cowan. Next, I'd like to hear from Joy Tucker. And again, if you would start with your address, please.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Joy Tucker, and I'm at 12331 East Los Reales Road, zip code 85747. So I guess my concern, and it sounds like some of it might be addressed already by what Bill was saying, is that the access will now be through a new road heading north. I'm guessing it's skirting that mountain that we had talked about. So I continue to oppose connecting phase two to Rocking K Ranch Estates for this obvious reasons that Rich has stated and most of us have stated, is that these roads are extremely narrow. They were not intended to carry all that traffic, whether it's only 15 houses and everybody owns 3 cars. You do the math and you've got, 60, 70 cars going down these roads that we don't really need. The other concern I have, or wondering, is are people aware that this dirt road, the part up on the top where it connects to Los Reales, that is now private property. That has been purchased by a gentleman who will be building a home up there. And he purchased 16 acres. And so what we call a dirt road now belongs to Todd. And he will be putting a house there. So, obviously I don't believe that there would be a road then now going through there. So that's interesting to think of that thing. I do really hope that, Cottonwood Properties is going to do what they're saying, as I'm understanding it, that there will be a road that won't come through us and people won't enter and exit that way. The option of a park is always still available, Cottonwood Properties, to put a park down there, because that is beautiful land that can be put into a park. And thank you very much for hearing my concerns.
Thank you, Ms. Tucker. Could you just, with a little more specificity, tell me where Todd's land is?
Mm-hmm. Well, Todd is on this call, if I believe correctly. He would be able to tell you what he's purchased. From my perspective, as I look at it, is if I'm at Los Reales, going west on Los Reales, that part in front of my house is paved with chip seal, not asphalt, and then it drops off to dirt road. That dirt road right there has a sign that says not a city or county maintained road. And that now is Mr. Didier's land. He bought 16 acres and he will be putting a home there from what we understand.
Thank you. That responded to my questions, and he can also amplify that if he chooses to. Thank you very much. Now, so there's a couple different ways we can do this. If you've logged on, you can raise your hand. There's a little icon at the top of your screen if you want to be heard, or failing that, I can just ask people to go ahead and speak up and then defer to the first person who gets the microphone, so to speak. So if you want to raise your hand, go ahead and I'll call on you. Otherwise, I'll take the first person who wants to be heard. Please go right ahead. Okay, I see a hand up, so we'll start with Mr. Wirth. Al Wirth, please start with your name and address, sir.
Yes, sir. I'm Al Wyruth. My address is 9982 East Paseo, San Bernardo, 85747. I'm president of the Rita Ranch Neighborhood Association. I believe, Mr. Examiner, you received approval plus some extra pages from our association regarding some comments. I know that several of the speakers say that this meets the HAMP, but part of the idea of the HAMP was the connectivity to other parts, or the potential connectivity to other parts and developments as they occur, so that we would not have essentially what you have here in Rita Ranch are closed off communities, and there's no way for the children to walk to the neighborhoods to get to schools without getting out on the main street. Part of the problem I see in this development, at least on the preliminary page that I was given from the city, is that the residential single-family homes are going to be, it looks like it's completely walled off. Now, what I saw from the planning community and the presentation looks like they've changed a little of that. But again, this is next to a major wash, which is also a wildlife corridor. And the problem is that once, in looking at this property, once an animal gets inside, I don't see how it can get out. Now, javelinas don't jump, but I mean, coyotes do. And this could eventually cause a lot of problems for your wildlife and any pets that are in the backyard. I would also be very worried if I was in the southern part of this community trying to get out in the morning when the other 370 some people are trying to get out, and you've got school buses, maybe about 4 school buses trying to pick up children to take them to either over to Bilby, or it could be over here into the Rita Ranch area to the Cross Point or one of the schools here. Or it was even suggested that by the time this is built, the kids may be going to school, believe it or not, in Rocking K. And so, you know, I'm a little worried about making sure that the Valencia/Valencia Loop intersection is protected. And that's why we requested that, even though I know the county and the city agreed to about 375 houses to be built, we think that when you start permitting this 200th, that you ought to start putting up a signal, because as the other speakers alluded to, Valencia over Old Spanish Trail has significantly increased traffic to the west. I mean, a lot of people who were having to go to Escalante and then down Houghton now don't have to go that extra 10 to 11 miles. They just come straight across. And so we've seen the traffic increase even here in Rita Ranch on Valencia. And I did put in about the trees. I know that that's something that the mayor and council, it may not be a condition you would like to put in, I'm not sure, but we thought that since it's a big issue with the mayor and council and the million trees, that ought to be an issue, because when we drove out to this site, there were trees planted, now by whom I don't know, along the dirt road on the north, where this property is going to be, and it looked like there was water going to it. So that's why we decided to put that in. And again, the major concern we have is trying to get out of this property. If there's an emergency and that one area is blocked, nobody's going to be able to get out. And I mean, even here in Rio Ranch, as much as we complain about connectivity, at least there are a couple of ways to get out of every major development. And I don't see that here. It looks like all of the property is blocked up with houses, and that's a concern. And the last thing is the planning center said that they were only going to put houses that are 25 foot along the eastern side of the property by the Pantana Wash Linear Park. We would recommend that those be single houses, not two-story along the eastern side. Nothing else for the scenic beauty, so you can look back and also see the sunsets, the glorious sunsets and stuff that we have here. And it shouldn't be blocked off by a two-story building along in Linear Park. So that's all I have. If you have any questions, sir.
I don't. Thank you, Mr. Wyruth. And yes, I did receive your letter and I have reviewed it and I will review it again. Appreciate your participation very much.
Thank you, sir.
I would now like to hear from Ms. Fitzpatrick. Please start with your name and address.
There we go. Hi, I'm Charlene Fitzpatrick, and I live at 12460 East Los Reales Road in the old Rocking K subdivision. I hear a lot from everybody about traffic concerns and wildlife concerns, and I really liked the last person who spoke talking about not being able to get out in case of an emergency. And my biggest concern has to do with the emergency part of if the Pantano floods. If the Pantano floods, I've seen since I've lived here, I've been here since 1998, the Pantana Wash going all the way to Houghton, as far as Houghton and that entire field completely flooded. So even though the developer plans to improve the embankments of the Pantana Wash, I highly doubt that it's going to be enough from my experience of what I've seen. And I'm worried about the future loss of property and the future loss of life, because I don't believe that a development so close to that wash is going to be able to succeed in preventing emergency flooding. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, I don't see any other hands, but if anyone else would like to participate, would you please go ahead and speak up, and then we'll defer to the first person to do so.
Yes,
Anybody else out there who wants to speak? Okay,
yes,
I have one.
Me?
Go right ahead. Start with your name and address, please.
Joseph Henrik. I live at 12310 East Los Reales Road in the Rocking Cave estate, and I sent you a letter with my concerns. I just want to make note of that. And I guess my question here is, what is to be gained by a limited number of lots for seeding prior to determining the proper egress and connectivity? It seems like it doesn't make sense to me. It seems like that can all be decided and determined going in. And doing it and deferring it to later doesn't seem to have any benefit. So I would be opposing the limited start on phase 2 residences. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have a hand up from Ms. Callis, or Callis, I'm sorry.
Callis. My name is Wilhelmina Callis. I live on 7550 Placita de Cerrecas in Rocking K. And I would like to also highlight the unsuitability of the extension of the dirt road into our neighborhood for traffic that is, first of all, quantitatively more, but also the construction traffic. It is completely unsuitable, and I'm very worried about the safety of the residents. These roads are used by a lot of pedestrians, mothers with babies, children who are waiting for the school bus, bicyclists, people with dogs, and it is just really an unsafe proposal. And that's all I wanted to add to the previous speakers.
Thank you, Ms. Callis. Would anyone else like to be heard? Mr. Shankles, Brad Shankles, please go ahead. Well, I thought I saw a hand up from Brad, but I guess perhaps not. Would anyone else like to be heard on this case?
Okay, sorry, I didn't put the audio on. My name is Susan Shankles. I'm Brad's wife. We live at 7771 South Camino Merlot in Rocking K Ranch Estates. We've been there for 22 years at least. And I also want to comment on the state of the roads and the fact that we do not have sidewalks in our community. So if we do have increased traffic, that will definitely cause problems with children waiting for school buses, people walking around, just general access to people's driveways, because there are no, like I said, sidewalks, and so there's no area where you can pull out and see if anybody is coming. So increased traffic would definitely be a big problem. We've already seen a little increased traffic with the community to the south of us, where some trucks were going through early on, trying to get through to that subdivision. And I think we were able to put a stop to that. So I just wanted to mention that.
How many?
Thank you.
How many lots?
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to be heard on this case? Anyone else? Hearing no one, would the applicant like to be heard again?
Yes, Mr. Urino, we would like to be heard again. Phil?
Sure. I think the major point from the neighboring comments was concerns that the developer would do this, and as much as I'm confident in us being true to our word, I think the important thing is that's not what you should be relying on. The conditions of this rezoning specifically state that requirement. So when anybody goes to file any kind of subdivision plan, those conditions are looked at, and they're looked at for compliance. So there's no way that even if we sold the property off to somebody else, that is ingrained in the process, and those requirements cannot be amended without a whole new public process and hearing. Secondly, the other major comment was on the looping for this, and this is down in a mined out area. So what we've done is twofold to address looping. Is within the residential lots on the south end of this development, there will be clear two paths of exit from any point in the subdivision. Secondly, the collector road that comes into this has access to the west to tie into the Atterbury collector road that is planned just to the west of this. So I think I agree that looping is an important concern, but we've worked closely with city staff to address that.
And that's on phase one, though, is that correct?
That's correct.
And then if I may ask you a question, sir, on phase two, and I think one of the speakers addressed this point in part.
Get his ass here.
On phase two, as a practical matter, why do you need to reserve the right to have 15 out of, what do you have, 146 homes on phase 2?
Thank you. Very, very good question. So
Why do you need, yeah, go ahead.
On the 15, we may or may not get a road to the north down to Valencia. We would very, very much like to, but to the extent that we don't want to have a restriction that says you can't even do what you're allowed to do today. I mean, if we have 10 or 15 lots in there, we'd want to have the ability and to basically do that. We would need right-of-way and issues and traffic reports irrespective, but I think that it was sort of a misconception on the one speaker's question of why do you need both? And the answer is no, we don't need both. Either we'll have more intense development and we'll have a direct road out to Valencia, or we'll have very, very low density in this area as is currently allowed.
Okay, well, I understand what you're saying, and I appreciate that very much. If the applicant has nothing further, then I will close the hearing on case. I'm sorry, I'm hearing somebody. Is someone trying to speak? Well, I guess not. So I'm closing the hearing on case C92116, and I want to thank everyone, including the applicant, but also all the neighbors for your participation. So our next case is case C2117, Brick Masters, Grant Road. Mr. Beal, would you present the staff report?
Yes. This is a request by Jim Egan of Heights Properties, LLP, on behalf of the property owner, Heights Properties, LLP, to rezone approximately 0.3 acres from C1 to C2 zoning. The rezoning site is located on the south side of Grant Road, approximately 200 feet west of Swan Road. The preliminary development plan proposes demolition of a former currently closed vehicle inspection facility and construction of a new auto service and repair structure with use classified as automotive service and repair major. Proposed development includes a 5,100 square foot commercial structure with 8 service bays, enclosed storage area, customer waiting and office areas with a maximum height of 1 story at 24 feet and with required parking and enhanced landscaping. 2 residential homes located on an existing C1 zone parcel to the south of the rezoning site are proposed for demolition to provide additional parking for the auto repair use. This parcel to the south will remain C1 and is not part of the C2 request. This is a second request by the applicant for the subject property for the same use. In this new proposal, the applicant has addressed certain neighborhood concerns regarding access, lighting, noise, landscaping, and buffering, as well as off-site flooding to the south of the site. The new proposal includes new information about off-site improvements, such as closure of alley access with bollards placed within the alley between the rezoning site and North Street to prevent traffic entering from and exiting through the neighborhood street, repaving of North Street, including grading to alleviate some of the street ponding, and installation of retention basins and landscaping along North Street. It addresses site lighting and noise concerns and preserves 2 existing large pine trees located adjacent to the proposed parking area to the south. Staff has determined that the new rezoning request differs enough to substantial modifications in the former PDP and includes new information that could not have been anticipated concerning proposed changes to adjacent uses. The Grant Alvenon Area Plan and Plan Tucson support commercial development at this site, provided site design can properly buffer existing residences and preserve the character of the neighborhood. Plan Tucson also supports the retention of jobs in the community. The proposed project redevelops a site with an abandoned vehicle inspection use and vacant structure, provides enhanced landscaping, provides some mitigation measures for any flooding in the area, and orients vehicle repair activities, site lighting, and noise generating uses away from residential uses. Revisions to the preliminary development plan since the previous rezoning request on the property show a site design that better addresses the neighborhood concerns. Subject to compliance with the attached preliminary conditions, approval of the requested C2 zoning is appropriate. As of to date, there have been two approvals and 3 protests with a letter of support by the Garden District. That concludes staff's report.
Thank you, Bill. Would the applicant like to be heard?
Jim Egan, Heights Properties, 6179 East Broadway, Tucson. I'm pleased that we have been able to reposition this rezoned property to better accommodate the interest and concerns of the Garden District. I think after the amount of time that both Kevin Petrick and Meg Johnson have put together, that I do believe that the majority of the concerns have been met. And we're here today to make sure that the neighborhood association and the conditions are reconciled so that we don't have any miscommunication on the steps for this rezone.
Thank you, Mr. Egan. Mr. Egan, have you reviewed the November 15, 2021 letter from the Garden District Neighborhood Association?
Yes, sir, I have.
And are you agreeable with all of the conditions that they've expressed in that letter?
I have, and I think there are some refinements that have happened since that letter that I was referring to.
Well, I guess my question was, will you agree with the conditions that the Garden District Neighborhood Association has set forth in their letter of November 15th?
Yes, sir.
All right. And do you agree with the conditions proposed by Planning and Development Services Department?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. I have one more question for you. There was a one of the protests was from the neighboring property owner to the west of where the proposed new parking lot would be, and it relates to access. Are you familiar with that property and that access issue?
Yes, sir.
Alley access, I think it is.
Right. At that point, where that property owner is connected, he has a choice between a north-south alley to his west or a north-south alley just to the east of his property, in between the property at 4659 in the alleyway. So my suggestion is just that if he were to have access to the north-south alley contiguous and to the west of his parcel, I think that would address his concern because it's contiguous to his property. He doesn't have to go around. But yes,
I understand what you're saying. Thank you. Would anyone in the audience like to be heard on this rezoning case? Ms. Johnson, please go ahead. Start with your name and address.
My name is Meg Johnson. My address is 4102 East Leicester Street. I am the Secretary of Garden District Neighborhood Association. I've been working on this project with the residents on North Street since the very beginning, the very first meeting that Jim Egan gave. And Breakmasters has totally changed what they are offering the neighborhood in terms of mitigation for the residents who live on this cul-de-sac, and we are in support of the new plan.
Thank you very much for your participation, Ms. Johnson, and also for your work prior to this hearing in bringing this matter before the zoning examiner. Thank you very much. Would anyone else? I see a hand up from Rand. No, the hand went down. John Callahan? Okay, I see John Callahan. Would you like to be heard, sir? You may be muted.
Hello?
Yes?
Rand Savell, 5409 East Holmes, 85711. I talked to John Beal this last week about the alley situation, and he assured me that this didn't have anything to do with the alley, that this just had to do with the property. But then again, the alley being brought up and cut off has been brought up again. Is this part of the rezoning or no?
I'm here to hear what you have to say about this rezoning and the property use that's being proposed. If you want to express a view on that, I'd be happy to listen.
I'm questioning the alley being bollarded off at North Street. Is that part of this rezoning? I was told that's a completely different issue.
I'm not going to get in between any conversations you've had with Mr. Beal. This is a zoning examiner public hearing on the rezoning application. If you have something you'd like to share with me about the alley, please go ahead.
Well, the alley's going to be cut off, is my understanding. And you're going to give me limited options at my property at 2355 North Swan. I'd like to know what remedies there are for that. Or does that have nothing to do with this?
I'm here to hear your view on the rezoning, including any effects from rezoning. I can't advise you on.
I'm not asking for any advice. I'm asking a question based on the alley, and is it as part of this rezoning?
If you're talking about the alley to the east
yes.
of the property, I think Mr. Egan spoke to that, and I will ask him to clarify exactly what his proposed development will do to the alley to the east. I can tell you that what I've seen by way of drawings indicates that there will be bollards on the alley to the east. And I can share with you what you probably heard yourself, that Mr. Egan was saying that the alley to the west will remain open. But I don't want to speak for Mr. Egan, and I want to have your question answered as fully as possible. Mr. Egan, would you like to address that now?
Yes, thank you. My preliminary development plan contemplates the closing of the north-south alley at North Street and the east side of our property on the eastern portion of the north-south alley. It also includes on the north of the alley bollards to prevent access from the Dunkin' Donuts into the north-south alley. These are concerns that the neighbors had, and in addressing those concerns, we felt it would assist with the overall congestion and intrusion into the neighborhood to prevent access into the north-south alley. And so, Rand, it does propose, and it's on the plan that you have, that there are bollards on North Street, at the Dunkin' Donuts, and at the east end of our property. You would be free, however, to remove your bollards and have access to the alley. The bollards you have on your property that prevent access to the existing alley.
Correct. I have to remove the bollards. The alley is going to remain dirt, and it's going to remain a flooding issue. Is that correct? And that's something that nobody is going to address, or is that going to be addressed?
It is not addressed in this proposal. The only mention on the alley is that it will have bollards introduced into those openings.
Thank you, Mr. Egan, for clarifying that.
Yes.
Sir, did you want to make any further statements before I turn on to another speaker?
No, that's fine.
Thank you very much. Mr. Callahan? All right, perhaps not. Mr. Petrick?
Hi, Kevin Petrick, Breakmasters Architect, 11635 East Tanque Verde Road. I don't really have much to add to what Jim has said. I just wanted to also share with you that I've worked personally with Meg Johnson. We work closely with Ward 6, Council Member Steve Kozaczyk. We were on site several times. I'm very familiar with the project, and throughout the meetings, we developed a list of 5 categories, and I feel strongly that we've addressed 100% of the neighborhood concerns. And I know Meg can attest to that. I support the letter that Garden District has submitted. That those items were outlined in my meetings with the Garden District. We all felt that one of the substantial issues that the neighborhood had issues with was access to North Street from the existing Dunkin' Donuts and cut-throughs from Grant Road. So Ward 6, Councilmember Kozaczyk, and we all felt like this would be the appropriate time to create the bollards at North Street, at Breakmasters, and at Dunkin' Donuts so that there's no commercial access on the North Street. And the only exception would be that the gentleman that just spoke would be able, sorry, I forgot his name, but the owner of the Cash Time building on the corner would be able to remove his bollards and have access to his parking spaces from the alley. But yes, sir, Mr. Urino, we've addressed all of the issues that the neighborhood has brought to our attention with regard to, we're going to pave North Street, we're going to help mitigate water ponding on North Street. We've developed sound reports. We're 100% on board to work with the neighbors with this development. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Petrick.
No, you're not.
Would anyone else like to be heard on this case?
Yes, can you hear me? This is John Callahan.
Yes, please go ahead, Mr. Callahan, and start with your
Sorry
address.
for the speaker trouble. Yeah, I'm 4660 East North Street. We live on the south side of the street that's affected by these changes, and I just wanted to thank Meg, first of all, and the Garden District for all the work they've done to help make this a win-win plan for everybody in the neighborhood, I believe. And also for Kevin and Jim and the owners of Breakmaster for working with us and listening to our concerns. I was initially against this when it was first put out last year. I thought it would only help benefit basically Breakmasters and the owner of the house that was going to be sold to make room for the parking lot. And I feel that a lot of work has been done. We've had flooding issues on this street for years. And as I said in my letter of support, you know, when we bought my house in 2011, I had no idea that the 2 houses across the street were zoned commercially. And I only found out when we participated in meetings for the grant rewidening project. And basically ever since then, I've been worried that somebody's going to come in and buy up these houses and build a huge business, and we're going to be looking across the street at a business basically. So I was against this when it first came out. However, the way it's been redesigned, and it's going to address a lot of, I mean, it won't solve our flooding issues, but it'll do a lot to help with the flooding issues that we have on the street. I feel that it's a good faith effort by Breakmasters, and again, I want to thank Meg and the Garden District Committee for all the work they did and working with us and with the owners of Breakmaster to get what I believe is a win-win for the whole neighborhood.
No, it's not.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Callahan. Would anyone else like to be heard? Hearing no one, I'm closing the hearing on case C2117. Thank you all for your participation. Our next case and final case for this evening is case C92118, Uhaul, East Broadway Boulevard. Mr. Beal, would you please present the staff report?
Yep. Yes, this is a request by Rob Longacre of the WLB Group on behalf of the property owners Americo Real Estate Company to rezone approximately 4.1 acres from C1 to C2 zoning. The rezoning site is located at the southeast corner of Broadway Boulevard and Camino Seco. The preliminary development plan proposes to convert a former grocery store currently vacant into a self-storage facility. The applicant is requesting C2 zoning as the Unified Development Code restricts the maximum permitted site area for personal storage use in the C1 zone to 3 acres. This rezoning request and preliminary development plan identify that there will not be any truck rental, display, sharing, or leasing operations. All operations will consist of indoor personal self-storage and related retail sales. The existing parking lot and parking area access lanes will remain in the current configuration. It should be noted that the applicant has included features to their new proposal. So actually, I should say the applicant has revised their rezoning application and the preliminary development plan from their 2 previous rezoning applications. It should be noted that the preliminary development plan clearly identifies only indoor self-storage use for the Uhaul project, and any future changes to the site and preliminary development plan for truck rental leasing will be considered a major change to the preliminary development plan dated August 27th, 2021. The applicant has included features to their new proposal that are more in line with the character of the existing shopping center. These key features include the following: no proposed truck rental or leasing operation, no proposed truck display along Broadway Boulevard, no truck storage area within the parking lot, no proposed customer parking or loading areas at the main building entry, and the existing parking lot and parking area access lanes will remain in their current configuration. Existing access drive adjacent to the north side of the building will remain in its current location and configuration, and loading zone and dumpster will be located at the rear of the building and located a minimum of 50 feet from residential areas. Walls on the south side of the buildings are 6 feet in height and have been architecturally improved, and new landscaping has been installed and is being maintained adjacent to Broadway Boulevard frontage and in the landscape islands on the property. The proposed rezoning will allow for the redevelopment of the vacant grocery anchor store. The revised project addresses previous compatibility and integration concerns raised by the zoning examiner in his 2 previous recommendations and is in substantial compliance with the Pantana East Area Plan and Plan Tucson regarding the location of the rezoning, redevelopment of a vacant structure, maintaining access within the commercial center, and enhancing and stabilizing the transition to the adjacent residential properties. Subject to compliance with the attached preliminary conditions, approval of the requested C2 zoning is appropriate. And as of today's date, there have been 5 protests and 0 approvals. That concludes staff's report.
Thank you, Mr. Beal. Would the applicant like to be heard?
Yes. And, all right. My name is Billy Longenbaum, the president of Uhaul of Southern Arizona, 3801 North Runway Drive, 85705. First, I'd just like to thank the planning and development staff for the work on this project and their recommendation for this approval. Just some project summary on this. I'm here tonight to provide you with some information that will help you assist in the decision that this Uhaul operation, whether it is liked or not, will not be harmful or injurious to the rest of the commercial shopping center. The site was purchased via public auction in December 2016. And as mentioned on the staff report, the site has not been used as a grocery store since 2015. We purchased this property because there's a viable market for the services provided by Uhaul. Americo, which is our parent company, purchases such sites to redevelop abandoned buildings and put them back into productive use. We provide valuable services to the community. Vacant buildings are not productive and are not desirable by the communities in which they are located. The Uhaul use on this site is currently operating at this site in this previous vacant building in conformance with C1 zoning as a retail sales facility, selling moving boxes and supplies. We wish to expand our business and provide services demanded by the area residents, considering climate-controlled indoor storage supported by the market demand study. And right now, personal storage is permitted in C1, but there is a restriction of acreage of the site. So our site is 4.1 acres, and it consists of 3 lots. One is 0.95 acres, one is 0.29 acres, and one is 2.99 acres. Customers of Uhaul will shop at other stores in the center, such as Walgreens, Burger King, and McDonald's. And like I said before, vacant stores do not make people feel comfortable and has the potential to keep customers of the center away. Vacant properties often are not maintained in a neat and orderly condition, and their unkept appearance is a distraction to the shopping center. As far as site plan changes, there are no site plan changes. The site will remain as it is right now. There's no changes in the parking lot or traffic flow. And as John said, we did have 5 protest letters. I'll just kind of go through some of their concerns on here. One of the concerns was the egress and ingress will be disrupted by Uhaul customers. Any egress or ingress will not be affected by, or that any access points will be affected. And there's a traffic report on that, there's usually about a total of 21 trips per day to the store. Most of the concerns were that they don't want the parking lot to become a parking lot for Uhaul trucks and trailers. Right now, for storage, the trucks will be limited to what customers are moving in and out and customers that are buying moving supplies. So we will not rent, receive, or shunt any trucks in the parking lot. The architecture of the building will complement the center. And then one of the other concerns was the tax status. And the tax status should only be a concern for the owner of the particular parcel, should have no bearing on zoning status. There's also concerns that other uses might become available with C2. And as John said, there's already a process in place with the city if there were ever a want or need to change that. The integration for the sites, the staff indicates that the project is in compliance with Plan Tucson and Pantana East Area Plan regarding the location of the rezoning, the redevelopment of the vacant structure, maintaining access with the commercial center, and enhancing and stabilizing the transition to adjacent residential properties. And customers of Uhaul will visit the other businesses that are in the shopping center. Vehicular access and parking, there will be no change in the site plan. And in conclusion, Uhaul takes pride in the appearance of their stores, and this one as well. We have installed new landscaping and will keep the facility neat and clean. The rezoning request will allow Uhaul to continue to conduct a viable business offering demanded services at a location abandoned by the grocery store. Uhaul did not have a part in the failure of the grocery store in this area. We simply just purchased it. Retail and personal storage are permitted uses in C1, with the exception of the 3-acre limitation. So when this use is in operation, it will blend quite well with the other uses in the center. City of Tucson planning staff, well experienced in the profession of land use, recommends approval based on their analysis of the site. And we thank you for your consideration of our request, and would respectfully request that you recommend approval for the rezoning.
Thank you, Mr. Loggenbaugh. Appreciate your comments. I had 2 requests to speak tonight, and I'll turn to them first and then open it up to others in the audience. The first one was from Rick Volk. Mr. Volk, would you please start with your name and address?
Rick Volk, business address 2102 North Country Club. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, thank you very much. Go right ahead.
Thanks for hearing this again. Appreciate the comments by Mr. Longenbaugh. We know the goal of the applicant and the reason that Uhaul bought the site is to have truck and trailer renting, leasing, display, and loading, in addition to self-storage. That's what they do. They're very good at it, and that's the reason they bought the property. They made their goal clear in the first 2 rezoning attempts. When we tried to negotiate with those attempts, they insisted, no, they want to do truck and trailer rental leasing. We're concerned that this is a backdoor approach to ultimately allow them to make it easier for them to get the truck and trailer renting in the future. Both zoning examiners in the previous cases recommended against the C2 zoning. So it's been established that those uses are not compatible with the shopping center or the Pantana East area plan. According to the city memorandum, the preliminary development plan identifies that there will not be any truck rental, display, sharing, or leasing operations. However, that's nowhere stated in the preliminary development plan. That is nowhere stated in the preliminary conditions. That's not under the land use compatibility section. The absence of mentioning the types of uses that would be allowed does not mean they won't be allowed. It also states that the exterior of the building will remain the same, but that's not established in the preliminary development plan. A self-storage use with an estimated 20 trips a day will defeat the purpose of having an anchor tenant in our shopping center. It will do nothing to restore our status as a qualified shopping center. And I know Mr. Longenbaugh is not concerned about our taxes doubling, but we are. The reason it won't be a shopping center anymore is because in the statutes, it will not meet the definition as a U-Haul use is not appropriate. It will not stem the decline in our property income and value that started with the U-Haul acquisition. The reason the property has been vacant for 5 years is that it's been owned by U-Haul and they will not consider alternate uses. Uses that would be more appropriate for the shopping center, uses that have gone in other shopping centers, such as fitness, groceries, theaters, etc. While I respect the city's staff's concept of what a shopping center is, my partner and I share 75 years of shopping center development and leasing. We're both recognized as experts in the field. And I will tell you, there's no shopping center where a service use is self-storage as the anchor tenant is appropriate or recommended. Most property owners I spoke to said they were going to protest it because they didn't feel like this would help their business at all and would hurt their business. 20 customer trips a day would be better than nothing, but it's not anywhere near what you'd get from a typical user. Our main concern here, though, putting all that aside, is that there are no zoning conditions that I see or understand that will cause the tenant to be, or the applicant to be restricted from some of these uses in the future. If they truly want to only rezone the property to allow for self-storage use, then that should be stipulated clearly in the development conditions. Everything that they've listed that they are not going to do, they should put in the development conditions and make it clear that they will be barred from pursuing that in the future, and that the parking lot will stay in the same condition. So it should the rezoning condition should stipulate that no truck or trailer rental, leasing, display, or loading will be allowed, and not just truck, but trailer rental, because U-Haul, of course, was founded on trailer rental. It should state that the existing parking lot, access lanes, and drives shall remain in their current configuration, and that the architecture of the building will remain the same as it is today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Volk. I also had a request from Pete Villascusa.
It's Villascusa. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Mr. Villascusa, I apologize.
That's okay. Yours is Iurino?
Yeah, that's close enough for me. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So I think Rick has pretty clearly stated our concerns, and I wanted to just touch on this last process, this being the third go-around on a rezoning for U-Haul. I understand there was 5 protests on this time. Last time there was 10 protests against the rezoning. So we first heard about this last summer, and they held a neighborhood meeting on June the 30th, just before 4th of July holiday. The only 2 people on the call were Rick and myself, and Rob Longacre. So we talked to Rob. We discussed the plan. We discussed our concerns, and we all agreed that we would talk in the future with Rob to address these concerns. So the next conversation was September 14th. We had a call with Rob, Rick, and myself. We again relayed our concerns, and Rob said he would address those with specific language and he would get back to us. So we didn't hear from anybody until November 2nd. We got a call from Rob individually. He called me and he called Rick. He said that the zoning examiner meeting was scheduled for November 18th. He said he didn't have the language we discussed, and he was also instructed by Uhaul not to deal with us any further. He said that we could speak to Billy Longenbaugh, and if we wanted to, we should contact him because he would not be contacting us. So this just further added to the concerns we have about this whole process and the history that we have with this group. We didn't receive a notice through the mail of this zoning examiner meeting, and the only way we got the information was by contacting John Beal, and he sent us the information. We found out that two other owners didn't receive the notice either, McDonald's and State Farm Insurance, who both protested the last rezoning, and I believe they protested this one as well. So, you know, it's our feeling we just haven't been dealt with in a straightforward, open engagement. They haven't addressed our concerns. As Rick said, we have concerns that in the future they're not going to try to backdoor or change these use restrictions. So we're just not comfortable with this process and with everything they've laid out. So I thank you for your time, and we'll wait for your decision.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else in the audience like to be heard on this case? Mr. Longenbaugh, did you want to say anything else?
Yes. So just to come back and come back around. One is the tenants have been in that, some of the tenants have been in there for about 10 years. And so that means they're still doing business despite the grocery store closing in 2015. These sites are typically one-stop locations and not the walkable shopping experiences that are being depicted. These businesses likely will have repeat customers that will still go there without you all. As far as the notices that were sent out, the notices were posted on the property 15 days prior to this hearing. All the mailings that we were required to do were sent out. So I'm not sure where yours got sent out, Mr. Volk. So as far as Rob, Rob, we had him working on this rezone, and we decided that we were just going to we were going to do this process ourselves. So that's why Rob hasn't been communicating with you. So and then to address the truck and trailer rental, if we were to decide to do that again, as John points out in his report, that would require a major PDP plan. So this is not something that we could just backdoor and do it, behind somebody's back. So there's a process to it. If that were to come down the pipeline. So
I have a question on that, Mr. Longenbaugh. I heard you in your presentation, and perhaps I heard you wrong, and I never like to put words in people's mouths, so just want to put it out there. I heard you say that Uhaul does not intend to operate, I think your words were display or receive or shunt, which I guess is a term of art within your business about moving trucks back and forth, but would not do that at this location, that you were not intending to make any modifications to the parking lot or the parking area access lanes. Am I correctly stating your position that you do not intend to do any of those things?
Sure, that's part of our PDP plan. And you know, the concerns in the previous rezone cases were truck trailer rental, us changing the parking lot, traffic flow through the shopping center, and none of that is going to change. So,
but just let's go into the future. You do not intend to use this site in the future for truck or trailer rental or parking, except for the customer who may rent a truck or a trailer at a different location and then come by and pick up some boxes. Am I stating your position and your intention correctly?
so if you're asking if that I am 100% saying no, that we won't do that, I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I don't know what's going to happen 20 years from now. So I don't want to be handcuffed on a decision that was made years and years back if times change. So.
Okay, and I guess is your position then on the parking lot and the parking area access lanes that you do not intend to tie your hands to leave it as it is, the parking lot as it is, and the parking area access lanes as they are?
So the plan right now and the plan moving forward is to leave the parking lot as it is now.
But you don't intend to tie your hands in that regard, just like on the rental business. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Well, thank you. Anything else, Mr. Longenbaugh, that you'd like to share?
No.
Well, I want to thank everyone for their participation.
Mr. Irene, can I just make one response to what he stated?
Sure, go ahead, and I'll give him the right to have the last word.
Sure, that's fine. So I've been involved in literally dozens of shopping centers from the ground up, from land. And what we generally start with is a grocery store and build out from there. The idea that our tenants who are struggling and who we've kept limping along there for the years that this has been vacant are thriving without a grocery store or another adequate anchor tenant is frankly a little bit ridiculous. So to say that they do not rely on the anchor tenant is just not a statement that carries any fact. They do rely on it. And once again, I would just like to point out, if their true desire for the C2 zoning is only to get the right to use it for self-storage, then they should be willing to say, if they get the C2 zoning, they're allowed to use it only in terms of self-storage, and otherwise it'll be restricted to C1 uses. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Volk. Mr. Longenbaugh, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I didn't bring this up. I brought it up in the previous rezones, but I have 15 examples of where Uhaul is the anchor tenant in shopping centers, and the shopping centers are viable shopping centers that conduct business and have, you know, not that many vacancies for businesses. So if you would like examples of that, I can provide you of at least 10 of them.
Well, I think you may have presented those last time around when I was still or then the zoning examiner. So I don't think you need to supplement anything. I hear what you're saying, and I'll bear that in mind.
Okay.
Okay. I want to thank everyone for their participation tonight, and I hope everyone has a safe evening and rest of the week, and take care, everyone. Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.